Grazie. Grazie delle domande, Genois. Diane Montagna.
Diane Montagna. Two questions for Cardinals Hollerich and Cardinal Grech. Number 60, which received the most no votes of all of the document, says that the question of women's access to diaconal ministry remains open. In what sense does it remain open? And especially in light of Pope Francis's comments that women cannot be deacons, and why does it remain open if, since this question has been studied since the 1990s, is it a matter that it needs to remain open, or is it a matter that the people can't accept a no, that women simply can't be ordained to the diaconate as part of holy orders? Second question, just a clarification. This would be another paragraph that received most no's. I think it's number 27. It talks about synodality, the style of synodality, and the style of liturgy, and how we need to adopt celebratory styles that make visible the face of a synodal church. I would just like to ask what that means. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
So I try to respond to the first question. This is a very delicate problem. So when the Pope says he is signing this document, that he makes it his own, that means also that passage. The Pope has said he has made this proposal his own. And who am I to contradict the Holy Father? So I fully accept what the Holy Father says. The Holy Father hasn't said women will be ordained deacon. He has not said women will not be ordained deacon. He has just said it remains open, it has to be studied. And if I understood correctly how that study group is functioning, it is first looking at what the women have done in history and can do in the church in sense of leadership, spiritual leadership, community leadership, and so on, without ordination. And then afterwards, if I have understood very well, this commission established beforehand will continue to do its work, also about the deaconate of women. It's not a decision for, it's not a decision against. The question remains open. That's, I mean, what the Holy Father also says when he says that he endorses the document. Now, the liturgy, that is a very general sentence. So many things could be understood. And it is one of these points which have to be discussed further. So we have a liturgy, the one of Paul VI, the Second Vatican Council. And of course, small things can always be changed, can be adapted. The fact is that many people have written at the beginning, when the Synod started in its first and second phase, that they had problems, that sometimes the liturgy did not speak to them. So we have to take it serious. It has to be seen, it has to be studied. It's no plan behind to do a revolution in liturgy. There is no plan to replace priests by laymen and laywomen. It's just how can it be a little bit more participatory. And you know, there are already differences in how the liturgy is, for instance, lived or acted in different translations. I have in my diocese a huge Portuguese-speaking population. So sometimes I say Mass in Portuguese. Sometimes I say also Mass for the Brazilians, with a Brazilian missale. And in the Brazilian Missale, there is a lot of participation during the prayer of the priest, the canon. People do acclamations. That could be, for instance, a participation. It's just an example. We had not this in mind. The sentence is general because it can only be general. It has to be seen. And it has to be seen in a synodal way. And I think that's what then the Pope means, that we have to try to see, and he will take the liberty to give norms afterwards when it's necessary. I hope I have answered, and I'm tired, so I might be a little bit saying strange things now. But it's not a big revolution which is planned in liturgy. No? I would like to add, because I'm a member of that study group also, that giving a synodal formation is much more than just having women in the staff. Having women in the staff is just normal. I mean, I do not want to deprive our seminarians from all the richness women can give to them. Women, as you know, are a little bit more than half of the world population. They are surely more than half of the church population. And I think that the seminarians will profit greatly when there are women in the formation. But that does not mean that having women in the formation, and now we are very synodal, everything is done. No? So it's much more than that which this group will have to study. Thank you. I would like to say exactly the same as Cardinal Gregg. Last year, you could still say there were a majority group, a minority group, which eyed each other sometimes with suspicion. But by the methodology of the Synod, by the conversation in the Holy Spirit, something new was growing. A new reality of being church together. And this year it was completely different. Of course, on certain subjects, opinions were divided, which is quite normal in such an assembly. People coming from so different backgrounds, from so different cultures, and so on. But it was not seen as a kind of political meeting where you have to try to get the majorities. We experienced synodality. And therefore, everything which is in the document of this year, which expresses ecclesiology, synodality, is a fruit of that experience. And everybody this evening was full of joy. You could not see people getting out, my point was not considered, or being sad about that. No, everybody was in joy. We have walked together, and now we know that we have to walk together in the future. And that's, I think, the great lesson we could experience. And we have to become ambassadors. No? We have not only to teach the document, but we also have tried to give people the experience in order to become a real synodal church on mission. No? Let's not forget that. No? We have not gathered just to look to structures of the church. We have not gathered to make a battle between conservatives and liberals. We have gathered in order to have a synodal church for all the baptized, a church which fulfills, which listens to the mission it has received from Christ and tries to do that in everyday life. I perhaps would like to give an answer to what you said, especially about secularized Europe, as I'm bishop of a very secularized country in Europe. Yes, I would say, but you have to pay attention. If you define the church just by a pyramid, hierarchy seen as a pyramid, of course you can't have a community when there is no priest. And what we did, and what many bishops did, we put all the parishes together and one priest being head for I don't know, 30,000, 40,000 people. Partly it's also due because you have not just a lack of priests, you have a lack of faithful. We have not many people enough in the different villages and the small churches. But when it is the case, when there is a community, then we should think, how can this community live the faith as church together? Of course, you will also have the Eucharist, because it belongs to our Catholic identity. No? There needs a priest from time to time to celebrate the Eucharist. But so many other things can be done by lay people. So we should not destroy a community if it still exists, no? Because it's not always the case. No? When there is a possibility of continuing it. Like in Africa, when it's a big feast when the priest comes to celebrate the Eucharist, but where normally lay people lead the celebrations. You know. We have to become a little bit more inventive. You know.
Grazie. Volete